There are moments inside the royal family that never fully disappear, no matter how many years pass or how carefully the institution tries to move forward. Some scandals fade into the background, some are forgiven but never forgotten, and some resurface with a new kind of force when the present begins to echo the past. That is exactly what is happening now, as Princess Anne, known for her sharp instincts, her discipline, and her refusal to tolerate foolishness, is once again at the center of a narrative involving Sarah Ferguson, a story that began in 1992 with one of the most humiliating scandals in modern royal history, is now colliding with the fallout of Andrew's contemporary controversies, creating a strange, almost poetic mirror of the past. And behind this collision lies a simple question. What does Princess Anne really think of Sarah Ferguson, both then and now? The answer is more complicated, more emotional, and more revealing than anyone expected. Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. Princess Anne is not a woman who wastes words. She never has been. Throughout her life, she has built a reputation on blunt honesty, unwavering duty, and a personality that cuts through nonsense with surgical precision. When Anne dislikes something, she does not hide it. When she respects someone, she makes it obvious. And when she believes a person has embarrassed the monarchy, violated expectations, or brought chaos into the royal household, she responds with a level of clarity that leaves no room for misunderstanding. This is why the history between Anne and Ferguson, Fergie, as the world knows her, is so deeply embedded in royal memory. The two women could not be more different in temperament or approach. One is stoic, responsible, grounded, and disciplined. The other has been described as energetic, free-spirited, unpredictable, and sometimes reckless. These differences were always there, but in 1992, they reached a breaking point. The details of that morning at Balmoral have resurfaced recently due to claims made in Andrew Lowney's biography, claims that remain unverified, but have captured public attention because they feel so plausible within the royal narrative. According to the book, Princess Anne nearly throttled Sarah Ferguson at breakfast after the scandalous photographs of Fergie and John Bryan were splashed across every newspaper in the country. The imagery was unforgettable. Sarah lying on a sunbed in the south of France, while her financial advisor sucked her toes. For a monarchy built on tradition, decorum, and quiet dignity, the scandal was catastrophic. And Anne, who has always taken the crown's reputation personally, was reportedly livid. According to the claims, again, unverified but widely circulated, Sarah walked into the breakfast room at Balmoral to find her in-laws silently reading the newspapers, all of them staring at the images of her affair. She fled the room in humiliation. A servant is said to have described her behavior as strange, suggesting she acted as if she were the victim rather than the person responsible for the scandal. Princess Anne, the story goes, confronted her later, delivering a furious lecture at dinner, expressing both anger and disappointment. Whether Anne truly came close to throttling Sarah, as one source claimed, remains an unverified allegation, yet it has become one of those stories that royal watchers repeat because it encapsulates the personalities of the two women so clearly. This incident is important not only because of what happened in 1992, but because it set the foundation for what is unfolding now. Over 30 years later, Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew once again find themselves at the center of dramatic change within the monarchy. But this time, the chaos does not come from sunbeds and scandalous photographs. It comes from Andrew's long-running controversies, his associations that deeply damaged his reputation, and the quiet but decisive efforts of King Charles to reorganize the family and protect the institution from further harm. And through all this, Princess Anne remains one of the quiet pillars of strength inside the royal structure. She has never indulged scandal, never sought attention, and never forgiven easily when the monarchy's image has been dragged into turmoil. It is here, in this intersection between past and present, that Anne's long-standing view of Sarah Ferguson gains new context. Because for Anne, some patterns are simply too familiar to ignore. In the early 1990s, the York household was already considered unpredictable. Andrew was often described, both publicly and privately, as undisciplined, indulgent, and prone to questionable decisions. Sarah, energetic and charismatic, but often naive or impulsive, struggled to adapt to the pressures of royal life. Their marriage had already hit cracks. The scandal only accelerated its collapse. Inside the royal family, there was a sense, unspoken but widely felt, that Sarah had brought shame to the monarchy. Princess Anne, who viewed duty as sacred, would have been particularly sensitive to this betrayal of expectation. Fast forward to the present day, and the echoes are impossible to ignore. Andrew's controversies, his disastrous interview, his associations that triggered global outrage, and the royal family's unprecedented decision to remove him from public duties have once again thrown the monarchy into disarray. And although Sarah Ferguson was not personally involved in Andrew's controversies, she remains closely tied to him, living with him, supporting him, and sharing the fallout publicly. For someone like Princess Anne, who has spent her entire life protecting the dignity of the crown, this may feel like a haunting repetition of history. It is here that a blended narrative forms, one that intertwines the past fury of 1992 with the quiet disapproval that may be simmering now. While Anne has never publicly spoken harshly about Sarah in recent years, observers often read her disciplined silence as its own form of judgment. The Princess Royal does not need to scream or scold. Her standards speak for her. And those standards have not changed. She has lived her entire life by example. Work hard, stay out of scandals, honor the monarchy, and avoid creating unnecessary noise. The Yorks, on the contrary, have often found themselves in the eye of a storm. This contrast makes the present situation even more charged. Prince Andrew has reportedly been pressured into leaving Royal Lodge, the home he has shared with Sarah Ferguson for decades. Rumors, unverified but widely discussed, suggest that Sarah has not been invited to join him at Sandringham and may instead relocate to Portugal. The man who was once one of the Queen's beloved sons now faces a future of diminished influence and quiet exile. And Sarah, once again, stands beside him, caught in the gravitational pull of another royal crisis. For Princess Anne, watching this unfold must feel strangely familiar. The details are different, the causes are different, and the consequences are vastly more serious, but the emotional pattern is the same. The Yorks, once again, are a source of disruption and disappointment. Anne is fiercely loyal to her family, but she is also fiercely loyal to duty. And when duty and family conflict, she has always chosen duty.
This raises a fascinating question. What does Princess Anne truly think of Sarah Ferguson in the present day, knowing how closely Sarah remains tied to Andrew's legacy? The answer is unknowable, but the pieces of the puzzle are visible. Anne has shown warmth and kindness to Beatrice and Eugenie, Sarah's daughters, whom she reportedly regards positively. But Sarah herself has never regained the trust she lost decades ago. And with Andrew's name under new scrutiny, any path toward reconciliation grows even more complicated. It is also notable that Anne supported King Charles's efforts to slim down the monarchy, a plan that implicitly reduces the Yorks' presence. Anne is a pragmatist. She knows the public is weary of scandal. She knows the crown cannot afford dead weight. And she knows that Andrew has become a liability that no amount of spin or silence can repair. In this sense, Anne's discipline aligns seamlessly with Charles's strategy. For younger generations watching this unfold, it may seem like ancient history, but for Anne, the past is not forgotten. She remembers the breakfast room at Balmoral. She remembers the scandal. She remembers the humiliation. She remembers how Sarah and Andrew's choices affected the family, and now she watches as Andrew's decisions create new turbulence at a far larger scale. The claims from the biography, though unverified, paint a vivid picture of how deeply Fergie's actions shook the family in 1992. And when placed next to Andrew's modern controversies, the parallels become striking. In both eras, the Yorks found themselves at the center of unwanted attention. In both eras, their behavior disrupted the quiet dignity the monarchy strives to uphold. And in both eras, Princess Anne stood on the opposite side of that chaos, representing stability, discipline, and frustration. This is why the blending of past and present feels so natural. Princess Anne's attitude towards Sarah Ferguson was shaped decades ago by a scandal that embarrassed the entire family. Now, as new crises arise around Andrew, those old feelings may resurface, not with shouting, not with confrontation, but with the quiet, firm, and unmistakable disapproval that Anne is known for. Yet there is one final dimension to this story: the York daughters. Beatrice and Eugenie have built reputations of kindness, professionalism, and stability. Even those who criticize Andrew or Sarah often praise the daughters for their behavior and independence. Princess Anne, according to various reports, respects them deeply. This fact complicates the narrative because it suggests that Anne is capable of separating her frustrations with Sarah from her admiration for the next generation. It also suggests that even within a turbulent family, there are moments of pride and grace. In the end, this story is not just about 1992 or 2024. It is about the emotional undercurrents that run through the royal family, shaping relationships, perceptions, and consequences. It is about how the past never fully disappears, but instead waits quietly beneath the surface, ready to resurface whenever history repeats itself. Princess Anne remains the monarchy's anchor. Sarah Ferguson, for all her charisma and resilience, remains a symbol of royal unpredictability. And Prince Andrew, once at the center of a very different kind of storm, now faces a future defined by isolation, scrutiny, and silent judgment. The breakfast table at Balmoral may seem like a distant memory, but its shadow stretches across the present moment, reminding us that the royal family is not only shaped by public ceremony, but by private tensions, regrets, and truths that continue to unfold decade after decade.